Welcome to Review, the show where we examine all of the spiciest takes on the hottest releases from the world of movies and TV. This week, I'm Terry Biza for Movie Recap Pro. It's great to be here with you, where we're going to be collecting the box office data, your essential questions and comments, and chatting with a Movie Recap Pro expert about the final installment from the Venom franchise, Venom The Last Dance. If you've already seen the movie, be sure to leave us a 6-word review in the comments below. You've only got 6 words. Make them count. Venom, The Last Dance. Then I'm actually taking on the voice of the character. I don't know what's going on. Directed by Kelly Marcel, and once again starring Tom Hardy as Eddie Brock and Venom. This is the third and final movie from Sony's Venom franchise. I know, let's try not to be too sad about it. This time out, Eddie Brock is on the run from murderous beings from outer space that, in truth, bear more than a little resemblance to the aliens from Starship Troopers. A sci-fi reference for the kids there, straight out of the 1990s. Start as we mean to go on. It's nice to meet you. Eddie and his symbiote partner are forced to deal with the news that they are carrying the Codex inside of him. Whatever, I don't know. The Codex is an intergalactic homing beacon that is being hunted by the entity known as the King in Black. The Thanos-level planetary threat that is null. In truth, it feels as though the battle lines have been drawn on Venom at this point. Either you find amusement in Venom turning into a fish, a frog, a horse, an alpaca, an alpine goat, a sloth, and an arver, and you can't get enough of Eddie Brock's ability to knock someone out from a distance with a crock, or you have decided that this cannibalistic superhero bunny cook duo is beneath you. Taking that into account, why has it taken such a massive dip at the box office this time around? Because the Venom movies have always traditionally performed pretty well. In fact, pretty well is selling it short. Looking at public reaction, the first 2 Venom movies both have a solid cinema score of B+. After its opening weekend, Venom The Last Dance has a pretty respectable score of B-. That's not an enormous drop-off from those first 2 Venom movies, so it's not as if word of mouth has been killing Venom The Last Dance in the way that we've seen with Joker, Folie à Deux, or Madame Web this year either. Critics have kind of famously always been at odds with the audience when it comes to all things Venom, with Venom receiving a score of 30% and its sequel faring slightly better but still landing a pretty dire score of 57%. All that being said, it's hard to believe that Venom The Last Dance, having a 37% rating from 127 reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, would have had much sway on audiences for this particular movie anyway. So, let's delve into those box office numbers. First up, all 3 of Sony's Venom movies have opened in October, with the first movie breaking all domestic records with an opening of $80.3 million. That was a record take for October, or it was when it actually beat the record set by Gravity. Venom Let There Be Carnage then set a new record for October by surpassing the first movie and taking $90.1 million. As has widely been reported, this weekend Venom The Last Dance has taken $51 million domestically, replacing Smile 2 at the top spot, and with the 11th biggest opening of 2024 so far. But that is a bit of a leap to sell that as a positive, and it is significantly below its projected $65 million, which reflects the growth and expectations set by the previous 2 Venom movies. Venom The Last Dance then has significantly the lowest opening of the Venom franchise, with only Madame Web, Morbius, and Into the Spider-Verse releasing with lower opening weekends. When it comes to non-MCU-related Spider-Man movies, that means each of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man movies and both Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man movies opened higher than Venom The Last Dance, as did Across the Spider-Verse, which had the second biggest opening of last year. Only Super Mario Bros. Had a higher opening weekend than Spider-Man, Across the Spider-Verse in the whole of 2023. And I know what you're thinking. We're all going to hell, and none of us can do anything about it. Movie Recap Pro, as comic book editor, will be joining us shortly to answer your questions and comments about Null and the future of Venom. But first, here's what we had to say about Venom The Last Dance on ScreenRant.com. After reviewing the first 2 movies and giving a 6 out of 10 rating for Venom and 5 out of 10 for Let There Be Carnage, we have said Venom The Last Dance is easily the best movie of the franchise so far, giving the movie a 7 out of 10 and praising the charm and affection that both Marcel and Hardy have for this character. We also praise the decision to give Venom flowers in this movie instead of getting involved with anything Spider-Man related or doing anything radically, or let's be honest, remotely different this time around. Instead, everything leans into what has worked for them so far, and that is accentuating the madcap friendship that exists between man and monster. After all, that is a relationship that can take decapitation and an ABA dance sequence and have it all make complete sense within the framework of one movie, something that I didn't know that I needed, but it turns out I've waited my whole life for that to exist. Stick around to see the best letterbox comments from Venom The Last Dance's opening weekend, and we've got your reviews. But first, here's Movie Recap Pro. Molly Freeman to discuss some of the comments and questions that you've had for us in the community section of the Movie Recap Pro YouTube channel. Okay, so Cat Scratcher 84C gets us underway by saying, I think an interesting question is why Venom 3 is not getting as good a response as the other two Venom movies. And it's a good place to start because with a cinema score of B-, if you've liked the other Venom movies, this is a pretty good Venom movie. Why has there been such a big drop-off at the box office with this movie? Well, I think that speaks more to the drop-off of superhero movies in general at the box office. Obviously, we had a very big summer with Deadpool and Wolverine. Like, that movie, I did not check, but I know it's over $1 billion. I am soaking wet right now. That was the first MCU movie to surpass $1 billion since Spider-Man No Way Home in 2021. So I think it's just harder for movies, superhero movies specifically, to do well at the box office. Even Let There Be Carnage, which is the second movie, came out closer to the height of the pandemic. But I think in this almost post-pandemic world, superhero movies just are not connecting at the box office as much. This is my personal feeling. I think people just don't have as much money as they did before the pandemic. They have to be choosier about what they go see, and unless it's something big like Spider-Man, No Way Home, or Deadpool and Wolverine, they're just not going to go to the movie theaters for it. Yeah, and it feels like Deadpool and Wolverine sort of flipped the trend because it felt like Deadpool's second movie had about a similar response as Venom's second movie. And again, both of the third movies are much better than that, but it seems to have really affected Venom. Do you think there's any burnout on the franchise? Or maybe because the knowledge that Tom Hardy isn't coming back. Do you think that has potentially kept people away as well? I do. Especially because this is not the MCU. Obviously, this is the Sony Spider-Man universe, which the last two movies were Morbius and Madam Web, which were not great. I don't want to be very diplomatic, Molly. I like it. Yeah, I reviewed both of them for Movie Recap Pro, so if you want to hear my thoughts or read them, you can. I did not like either of them very much, and I do think that they did not connect with audiences. I think that impacts Venom a little bit because this is that franchise. I think people are well aware of that franchise, and they have seen two duds. They don't really want to see another one, even though the last Venom movie was good. The last two movies in the franchise were bad, so I think that does definitely impact Venom 3. Yeah, I could see that. I could say that as Tech 2012 is the next person to give us something to talk about. He said, I'd like a discussion about the differences between the Venom movies and the source material. What did Sony do right, and what could they have done better? And what is the difference between how they handle the symbiote in the movie versus how they handle it in the comics? Yeah, that's a huge question. I think for me, what they did right was they embraced the humor in the character. That was the best thing about the first movie. It was so funny. And then the second movie leaned into it even more. So I think they know that it works really well in film. But what they could have done better is dive a little deeper into the lore of the character, specifically the symbiotes. I think there are so many interesting storylines and characters in the comics that are waiting to be utilized, but they chose instead to focus on this very specific version of the character, which is funny and silly, but does not touch upon the much darker aspects of the character in the comic books. That's a great point. I think as well, the fact that this version of Venom has largely been separated from Spider-Man means we miss out on the more important dynamic of the relationship between Spider-Man and Venom, which is a huge part of what makes the character so appealing in the comics. So, while this version of Venom is undeniably charming, I think it lacks the depth that it could have had if it had been allowed to explore more of the source material and relationship with Spider-Man. Totally. And with that, what are your closing thoughts on the movie? Venom The Last Dance is definitely the best of the three, and it does have a lot of good moments, but ultimately, it feels like a missed opportunity. It's fun, but it could have been so much more. I'm right there with you. The fact that they chose to lean into what worked with the characters instead of pushing the envelope or making any radical changes was a smart choice. It really felt like a love letter to fans, but it also left me feeling like there was so much more that they could have done. Well, there you have it, folks. Thanks for joining us for our review of Venom: The Last Dance. Be sure to check out all the comments below and let us know what you think.